Aloha, my name is Kevin Kimball, and the purpose of this workbook and related video is to provide a schedule that computes the present value of an ordinary annuity. Ordinary annuities, as you recall from a prior class, is an annuity where the annuity payment is made at the end of the period, and therefore the current annuity payments would not earn any interest. So if you make a payment, an annuity payment in a given period, that would not start earning interest until the following period. With that in mind, there's certain key variables that you're going to need in computing present or future values. Those are the annual interest rate, the number of periods, the payment amount, and whether this is an ordinary or an annuity due. Ordinary annuity or annuity due. If it's an ordinary annuity, you'd put in 0 in the formula, and if it's an annuity due, where the payment's made at the beginning of the period, you'd put in the number 1. In this case, we'll be computing present value, and therefore we know the future value. Notice over here on the left I use the actual names that appear in the formulas, Excel formulas, and here is more of a common way of describing those. I'll have an answer section where I have computations of present value, verification of future value, and some check figures. And then I prove the numbers going backwards, and I prove the numbers going forwards. So in this case, what I'm saying is if I had $1 million 10 years from now and worked backwards, deducting the payment, deducting the interest, all the way back 10 years, I should come to 0, which is the present value. The other way is saying, okay, well, if I had 0 today, but I made these payments for the next 10 years, including and earned the related interest, I would have $1 million. And then down below, I just did a really quick graph. I could clean this up a little bit by titling it a little bit better, but I have that. One other thing that I'll show you, or two other things I'll show you, is using something called goal seek, where I can target a certain amount. Let's say I put in 2.5 million here, and I can say, well, how much of a payment would I have to make to get to 2.5 million, assuming I have no money to start with. I might also bring in what's called a scenario manager. But that's the purpose of this video, is help you feel really comfortable with the present value and the future value formulas for annuities. With that in mind, I will move this spreadsheet out of the way, and I'll bring another spreadsheet into the view to start from scratch over here. Let me drag and drop this out onto my other screen. And now I have a blank screen. You should know by now how to bring in a new workbook. Assuming you do, I'll just hit the Control N. You see there's a hotkey here. If you have a blank Excel screen, you can hit Control N, and it brings in a new workbook. And we will automatically save this. Alt F-A to save as. Now, when you're going along and you just want to save regularly, it's Control S. Let's say you've done some changes in something and you just want to save. Instead of going to the Save As, where you might want to change the type of workbook or things like that, just do Control S and it just does a quick save of what you've done so far. So I want to save this under my Accounting 232B folder, and the place I'm going to save this is under under Present Value Ordinary Annuity. And I want to change this to an Excel workbook, which is Excel 2007. You can see this is the example I just showed you, which is a pre-video. And I will call this one 232B Present Value of Ordinary Annuity. This will be the post-video one because I'm creating the whole thing again from scratch. The titling is pretty easy. I'm just going to try to get through this as fast as I can to save some time for this video. You can just follow along in typing what I'm typing. This is the key financial functions. This is present value. Prepared by Kevin, I think I'll put that in column B actually. Maybe column C. Kevin Kimball. Prepared on, and we'll just do today. And the purpose of this workbook is to provide a schedule that computes the present value of an ordinary annuity, i.e. where the annuity payments are made at the end of the period. Our data section, I'm going to put this in column B and call it the data section. My answer section will be in 17. And I'll have a backward proof here on row 23 and a forward proof on 17. So starting with our data section, we have our rate, and I hit the tab button to tab over interest rate, and I'll put in 10% while I'm here. Next, N per tab number of periods, and this will be tab 10, and then PMT payment amount, and this is going to be 62,745.39, and actually the number is a lot longer. In fact, why don't I give you that full number now, just so we don't have a reconciling difference later on. That full number is 62,745.39 488,25115. The reason that's such a specific number is because I did a goal seek to determine what the payment amount would have to be in order to earn $1 million. So I'll show you a goal seek later on as to why that number came out to be so specific. And this will be $1 million. And the type of annuity, I'm just going to tell people, hey, this is an ordinary annuity. And you have to put in a 0. And that's where the annuity payments are made at period end. Now this schedule I could have written in a way to handle both ordinary annuities as well as annuities due. I didn't choose to do that. That would have taken a little bit longer in this particular video, and I didn't feel it was necessary. So this particular schedule can only handle ordinary annuities, so please keep that in mind. I'm going to control click the 10% and control and hold the left mouse button down for payment and future value. I'll put a bold around them, and I want to change the color to be a light green. And that's, I guess that light green didn't take. Let me try that again. Choose my light green there. Okay, now I'll go into my answer section. I won't deal much with this right now. I'm just going to label it present value, check figure, control C, and go over here. Maybe this won't save me much time, but future value. So I just hit the F2 button to edit that. Now I can go down to my backward proof, and the titles will be period, end balance. In fact, this looks like I'm off just a little bit. I want my backward proof to be on row 22. Yeah, I want that to be there. What I did, Control X, Control V. That was in 23. I hit Control X, which is cut, and then I hit Enter, or you could have hit Control V. And I'm going to go here to 25. Hold the Shift button down, end, right arrow key, Control X, go up one, and hit Enter, and that puts it on the new row there. So I'm back to how I wanted it. Payment, interest, begin balance, and check figure. And down below in the forward proof, you'll see that I have similar titling, but the order will be a little bit different. Our period, I'm going to start with the beginning balance down here, and then I have payment, and I have interest, and I have end balance, and I have a check figure. Alright, so that's kind of the basic setup, In my periods, I'm going to go 10, 9. I've got a sequence going, so I'm going to highlight those and drag and drop down to 0. As you've learned in maybe other videos, I could have written formulas to compute this and put in blanks if the data was not complete. I won't take the time on this video to do that. Before I move on, let's name these variables, because I will want to use those variable names down below. So fast way to name these is just go up to formulas, and since the values are directly next to the names of those cells, you can just choose define name, and this dialog box will appear recommending the name that you already have here in the cell. And you'll notice I had a space here between annual and interest, but when it defines the name, it puts an underscore there because the name manager will not allow spaces in between the words of a name. So I hit OK, go to the next one, define name, hit OK, next one, define name, hit OK, next one, define name, OK, next one, define name, OK. So I've got them all named. So at the end of period 10, the ending balance should be this future value. Okay, I guess I didn't name the annuity type. Let's go up here and define name. I want this to be annuity type. Okay, so anyway, I've got my future value. Now my payment is pretty much straightforward. Payment is the $62,000, and the interest. This interest will be based on the beginning balance times the interest rate. Now, since there is no beginning balance yet, we have no interest for this period. But effectively what we're saying is if we started with this ending balance and deducted this payment, deducted this interest, we would get to this beginning balance. So we're going to have to compute what the beginning balance is based on the data that we already have. So if you think about this beginning balance, what's going to happen is if we had this number and we added to it this payment and we multiplied this beginning balance times interest and added that to it, we would get to the $1 million. So what we need to do is come up with a formula that does exactly the opposite. This is the formula that I've come up with, and I'm going to put it right here so you can see it, and hopefully you can see the logic here. What I'm saying is if you take C25, which is the ending balance, and you add this payment, which is a negative, in other words we're deducting it, that would give me an amount that does not, that would give me the ending balance without the payment. So that would give you the ending balance, which does include interest for this period. So if we took that amount, which is ending balance less the payment that was made just before the end of the year, and divided it by 1, that would give me $937,254. Okay, so all that's done is taken this million and deducted 62,000. But we need to then say, wait, what about the interest rate? Okay, now the interest rate, if I added that interest rate to the denominator, right? So this is going to be like 1.1. So if I take the ending balance less the payment and divide it by 1.1, that would give me my beginning balance, which, if we were to multiply by 1.1, we would get the beginning balance plus the interest. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. If you've taken the Accounting 232A class, it should make a lot of sense, but that's kind of the math that I'm doing there. With that in mind, the ending balance for period 9 would be the beginning balance for the next period. So in other words, whatever we end with in 9, that's the beginning balance. And as you can tell, we're doing a backward proof, and so that's what we're doing there. This ending will be the beginning, but we're using that beginning to tell us what the ending is. Next, we've got our payment. that I can just copy down because it's simply the payment amount from up above. It's a fixed amount the whole life of the annuity. Interest rate is simply the F25, which is beginning balance times the interest rate, so that formula is fine. And then we have our beginning balance formula, and that formula works for each of these rows. We copy that down and we have a good row's worth. So I'm going to put my cursor in cell C26, shift and over, so I've highlighted the whole row, and then double click the bottom right hand corner, and that helps me to reconcile. Now in the very bottom here, there is no payment, interest, or beginning balance in the period 0, so I'm going to delete that. Next, this actually does reconcile here. We'll format that to show this comes out to 0, but let's go into the check figure and let's delete that formula there. The check figure. The concept behind this check figure is, if we knew the ending balance for period 10, and we were to just go back to the beginning of the year, so if we took this $1 million and went back to the beginning of the year, well, if we went back to the beginning of the year, we wouldn't have had this payment, so that would be smaller, and if we deducted the interest, it would be smaller. Now one thing we didn't do here is this interest, I want to show it as a negative, so let me get in here and I'm going to put that in as a negative, and I want to copy that down. Okay, because I want both these payments to show as negatives. Anyway, so big idea, once again, if I had this million and I deducted this and deducted this, I would get to the beginning balance. What that is, what this number here, the beginning balance is, it's the present value of $1 million discounted back to the beginning of the period, assuming a 10% interest rate and assuming a payment of $62,745. That's what that is. It's the present value of $1 million, assuming a $62,745 ordinary annuity payment and interest earned at $85,205. So let's put that formula in. Equals present value. We'll just see if that's true. If we take the present value, this annual interest rate, and we do it just for one period, we're discounting back one period, and we have one payment. In fact, I'll even put the payment amount here. I'll just take this payment amount. It's the same as up there, but we'll just pick it up there. And our interest, the future value, as you can see here, the context, the syntax tells us it's the future value. And our annuity type is a 0. That should come up to be $85,249, but it'll show up as a negative, okay, just because of how we've done our payments. Discounting back is actually showing back as a negative. But then we deduct. Actually, we can just add that. Since the beginning balance is positive, we can add that, and effectively I've proven it out. So I've done a present value, I offset it against the beginning balance, and that for the check figure is 0. I double click, and that works for all of them. Now that I have the whole range done, I can highlight this, and I'm going to go to Home, and I'll put maybe a comma format on those. So that was our backward proof. Now let's move to our forward proof. I believe the forward proof is probably a little more understandable from a conceptual standpoint. Let's get into cell B40, hit a 0, hit a 1, and then we're going to highlight those two and drag and drop down to 10, because it's a 10-year period. And what we're going to do here is we're going to start with these beginning balance, and we're going to build it up to the ending balance, which should be $1 million down the road. So our ending balance is the ending balance there. So for period 0, the ending balance is 0, just like period 0, and the backward proof is 0. Okay, and why don't we call this, we'll give this a name, end balance. In fact, why don't we call this P present value detail. Okay, so it's the present value from the detailed proof. And then I can, as you've learned before, since I've already used that formula, I can actually go to formulas, and under define name I can apply names, and I can apply this new name that I just wrote, and you see now it picks it up. It's kind of a slick thing. Now, as you know, the ending balance for period 0 is the beginning balance for period 1, so I'm going to hit equals F40. The payment, I'm going to put the payments in here as positive numbers, so I'm going to put a minus, and I'll pick up the pay, just start typing payment amount, and you can see it comes up, and I can double click that. The interest is going to be equal to the beginning balance times the annual interest rate, which is from up above, as you know. Now you should notice something here. There's no interest earned in period 1, and someone would say, hey, wait, but you made this payment. Yes, you did make a payment, but that payment wasn't made until the end of the year. It was made like the stroke of midnight on December 31st. And therefore there's no interest earned during that whole year. That's what an ordinary annuity does. Now if this were an annuity due, then we would have interest already in the first period based on this payment amount, because this payment would have been made at the beginning of the period. Now the ending balance is going to be equal to the sum, actually. We can just sum these. We can just sum all these, and that would be our ending balance. And with that, we should have all the formulas that will work for us. So we can highlight that whole row and just double click. And as you can see, this cell, which is $1 million, is too wide now, so we can just drag and drop that. Now we're going to come up with our check figure. Now with this check figure, we're going to use the future value, because what we're saying is if I had 0 at the beginning of this period and made a payment of $62,745 as an annuity, as an ordinary annuity, what would the ending balance be? And that's what a future value does. So let's do that. Future value, and the future value is our annual interest rate from up above. You can go up and click, or you can just click it here. Number of periods, you know, I'm just going to show you this. If I go up there, it's going to pick up the number of periods, or I could have just typed that in. The payment, in this case, we're going to pick up the payment here. And next is going to be our present value. The present value is the beginning balance. And the type is an ordinary annuity. Now, what was my mistake? If you look at that, what did I do wrong? I was trying to compute the future value after one period. Well, what did I do? I accidentally picked up the number of periods, which is all 10. So that says if I start with 0, what would the future value be 10 years from now? But I don't want to know about it 10 years from now. I want to only know it from 1 year from now. So all I did is I hit the F2 button, and I changed it from the 10 up here, the annual periods, to only 1. And I get to 6245.39. With that, I can then add the ending balance, and we reconcile and double click. So now we've got our check figures done, both forward and backwards, and we can highlight this and format it to be just a normal comma. Click the home ribbon under the number format, and so we've got that formatted. So that should be pretty good on both of those. Let's get up and do our answer section up above, and then we'll come back and do some formatting. So under we'll do present value, then future value. So under present value, we'll do that formula here, type PV. In the present value, we need a rate. We need the number of periods, which is now 10. We want to do it for the whole 10 years, not just 1 year. The payment, 62, and we've got our future value, which is $1 million, and our annuity type, which is 0, and we get a present value of 0. Now we're going to go and get our check figure. And in our check figure, all we're going to do here is we're going to take this number, present value, and we're going to add the present value from down below here in C35. Okay, and we might have to test a couple to see if this is coming out correctly. I may actually have to deduct this number to make sure they're offsetting correctly, but we'll see. Going on to future value. Under future value, we're just going to do the normal formula, which I just barely did by accident. Take the annual interest rate, take the number of periods, take the payments, the payment amount, which I'm bringing in as a negative, by the way, and pick up the present value. In this case, I want the present value to come from right here, D19, and I'm going to say the annuity type is the ordinary annuity. So this comes up to be a million there. Now in my check figure, I want to then verify that it agrees to the million that I've computed down below. So that would be this number minus the one that I computed down below, and there's my check figure. So all the real meat of this particular schedule is now done, and so from here forward I'm going to do some formatting, but I'll also show you a concept called goal seek, and hopefully if this doesn't get too long, I'll do a scenario manager. They're very nice functions and I think you'll like them. So back to my formatting, I'll just go to purpose here, and I'm going to underline that, Control B, Control U. Each time when I go into edit mode, I can either hit the F2 key, which is a hotkey to edit, or you can just click on the cell and just do your work up there. So that's your purpose. Data section, I'll go out as wide as column G, make it green and bold around it, and Control B, the data section title. We do need to make these a little bit wider. I just double click that. So I'm going to double click a few of these just to make sure they're wide enough. You see that went too wide, so I will have to come back and look at that again. The reason this went so wide, instead of fitting to these numbers here, this long phrase caused it to go a little bit too wide, so maybe I'll have to bring that back in. Once again, I could have highlighted all these and I could have just changed column width. Just highlight like this and go like this, right click, column width, and maybe make this a 17. If you like that, that works as well. I think the check figure is maybe a little bit too wide, and we could double click that. But right now we'll kind of stick with it. Let's go to the answer section, highlight that, and I'm going to change this to be blue, and I want to put a bold around it, and Control B, the answer section. The backward proof, I'll make this really kind of a bright color to let people know that these are two different methods. Backward proof. Now you notice I went and did that formatting. I can highlight, I can go shift and right arrow key, so I'm highlighting both those. I can choose a format painter and I can drag and drop that format. So if you do some work that you like the format of, you can drag and drop it. Now moving down, it would be nice to have these rows different colors, so a really quick way is to just move your cursor into cell B24 and go up under the home ribbon, format as table, and let's just choose this light blue here. Well, why don't we do a darker blue, a medium blue. Okay, I'll just click on that. It then says, hey, are you sure this is the full table? You notice I only clicked on cell B24, but it says, hey, I know this whole table probably all wants to be together. I do have headers, which means titles for each of my columns, and so I'll leave that check mark. I don't want to go like that. I want to leave it, and therefore back again. That's what I want, and hit OK. So what this just did is it changed the coloring in my table, and also change this to be a filter. So for example, if I choose period and I remove select all and I say, well, I want to look at period 4, it then filters for period 4. And so you can filter on any one of these columns and I'm going to go bring that back. Okay, so let's do the same thing for the next one. Click on period, format as table, and maybe I'll do this a green. That is the right range. Hit OK, and that's all fine. Now maybe I might want to highlight the top row and do home and center. Hit top row, home, and center. But when I do that, you can see that the word period kind of gets cut off, so I might have to drag that over a little bit. Just look at them to make sure they're wide enough. Check figure looks a little bit cut off. But it looks like we're good as to the formatting. These here, this is just kind of a formatting issue. You could just go right here and choose comma, and let's do maybe currency actually. That's counting. I want to do currency. If you do currency, then that does come out to be all zeros if you wanted to do that to make it all look consistent. So it looks like it's reconciling properly. I don't know that you can center that. Let's try it. Yeah, I guess you can. I'll highlight those and center them. Looks a little bit nicer. So I think we've got that all set up nicely. In the answer section here, I wanted this to be light blue. So I'll put that on. And let's go make a couple points here. We've got to do some formatting. Maybe the annual interest rate and number of periods. I'll control-click both of these and then center. I'll highlight these two and maybe make it a currency. And then ordinary annuity, I'll center that. Now, you'll notice it was kind of important that the users input these payment amount as a negative. So here's a way to make sure that your user does not put in a value that will mess up your formulas. Click on cell D12. This is called data validation. Click on the data ribbon. Go over to data validation. Click on the top, data validation. So this will, as you can see, the help told you there, it will prevent invalid data. So on the cell, what do I want to allow? I want to allow any decimal that is less than or equal to a maximum of 0. Which means if someone puts in a number greater than 0, it will deny it. Now I can help people to know what they're supposed to enter. So I'll say enter payment amount. And then I'll give an input message to help people say, please enter your payment amount as a negative number. And I want to give an alert, so stop, say, this is the message that'll come up if they put in a positive number, incorrect payment amount. And the error message is say you entered an incorrect payment amount. All payment amounts must be entered as negative numbers. Please try again. Now don't get too funny on this because people don't want to see that error message more than once if you're kind of making fun of them. So hit OK. And as you can see here, here's that help that people will know what they're supposed to do. And I'm going to move this off to the side by dragging and dropping. Now watch what happens if I try to put in like 500. You see here's the title that I typed in, incorrect payment amount. You enter an incorrect payment amount and you can see the message. So I'm going to retry it. That's what the user would be allowed to do. And then we could put in that minus 62745.39, and the number actually is a little bit longer than that. Let me get the full number in there. You can see if you look down below, since I only put in 0.39, it doesn't reconcile to the penny. So let me give you the longer number that will make sure that reconciles. 488251115. So that's data validation, and you can validate on text. You can validate, for example, if you have an approved customer listing. Let's show you that under data validation. Let's go off to the side here. You can do a data validation that under your settings can be a list, and that list can be names, for example, so that if someone tries to put in invalid vendor name, it would deny it. So be aware of that. That's a nice function to prevent people from putting in values. So I could do data validations on either of these as well, but I won't take the time now. One last thing, actually a couple last things. I would like now to show what's called a scenario manager. What a scenario manager does for you, it allows you to look at multiple scenarios at the same time in a report. Let me name this cell here, present value, because I will want to refer to that in my scenario manager. So here in my scenario manager, I'm going to go up to data, what if, and choose scenario manager, and I'm going to add a new scenario. So if you notice that, you just go to data, what if, scenario manager, and you want to choose add. Now I always like to do a status quo, which includes all the current values. So the changing cells, I'm going to highlight this, and I'm going to control click the annual interest rate, number of periods, payment amount, future value, ordinary annuity, and those are the status quo numbers. And I'll leave them all as is, so I can always come back to them later on. And I hit OK. So now I have one scenario. Now I'm going to add another one, and maybe under this one I'm going to say rate of 5% and 100 and minus $100,000 payment, something like that. Yeah, let's do that. And therefore, since I still have these changing cells, I'll hit OK. And the only thing I want to change is under the annual interest rate, 0.05, which is 5%, and the payment amount I said I wanted to be minus 100,000. Okay, so now I have another scenario. So what this is doing is building up some scenarios that I can show all at once. And I'll do one more, and maybe this one I want to say 12% rate. Rate of 12%, and I won't change anything else. Hit OK. I'll have to put that in as a 0.12. I won't change any of these others, and hit OK. So I've got these scenarios, but what if someone's to say, well, hey, let me see all those scenarios side by side. All you have to do is just hit the summary. You hit that summary, and it's going to ask you what cell do you want to look at once these are changed. So once you change these, what cell are you going to focus on? Maybe I want to focus on the present value, and that will be my result cell. And I can look at multiple result cells. Maybe I want to look at the present value. Maybe I want to look at the future value. You know, so you can look at those. In fact, maybe I want this future value up higher, that future value there, and I hit OK. So immediately it gives you this summary. It shows the status quo. It shows if you change the rate to 5% and the payment to 100,000, what the present value would be, as well as at 12%. So that's a scenario summary. I won't keep that in my, well, maybe I'll leave it in my file. I'll hold the left mouse button down. I'll drag it to the end here in case you do want to look at that. I'll keep it in my example. So that's a scenario summary. The last thing I thought I'd show you is just a quick graph. Let's say I wanted to track this ending balance. I wanted to graph the ending balance. I could hold this, drag and drop, and now that it's selected, I could choose Insert from the Insert ribbon and choose a line graph, and maybe just a basic 2D line graph, and you can see that ending balance line graph. I'll drag that down to the bottom here a little bit. Just move it down here. And you see the numbering here is 1, 2, 3 up to 11, but you see over here it's only 0 to 10. So what that means is just counted, and I don't really want that. So I'm going to click that once with my left mouse button, then right click and choose Select Data. And over here in the horizontal axis labels, which is what these are, I want to edit them. And where am I going to get my labels? Right here. I'm going to hold my left mouse button down, drag and drop, and release, and hit OK. And you can see now it goes 0 to 10, and that's OK. So this is just a quick graph showing how that ending balance grows to get to the 1 million. Another thing we should do is maybe fit this to one screen. We'll go File, Print. In fact, you can get it that way, or you can go over here to Page Layout and hit Page Setup. And on this Page Setup for Page, I want to fit it to one page wide and maybe 2 pages tall. And now look at the print preview. Okay, so it looks like this all fits into one page nicely. Maybe I can move this down a little bit further. If I weren't condensing this, I could just do a page break, but if I went here and chose a break, I don't know that this page break would work. Let's look at it quickly. Print preview. Yeah, so that page break, when it condenses, it doesn't work with that page break. So I might just have to move this down just a little bit further, just manually, and now go back and look at that. I can go here to the home button, print, and look at the preview. That's not what I wanted. Try that again. I had the graph selected. Go here, print, preview, and you can see that's one page. Page down, that's the next page. If you wanted, you could put some titles that print on the top of each page. Let's do that. Let's go to Print Titles, and I want the rows to repeat at top, these top rows. And now I go to Print Preview, and I go page down, and you can see that title stays up there on both, so you don't have to type it both times. Otherwise, you would have just had this blank piece of paper with ending balance graph on it, and people may not have known what we were even looking at. So I think that's pretty good. I believe that we've accomplished the objectives of this particular case. Oh, I wanted to show goal seek. Let's say I wanted to have in the future 2.5 million. This is going to test my check figures here as well. I might have to change them. Let's say in the future I want 2.5 million. Looks like my check figures are working, so that's good. But the question is, if you look down here, you see that in order to get to 2.5 million, I would actually have to start with 578,000. Right? That's my present value. And on top of that present value, make all these payments, and I would get to 2.5 million. But what if I don't have 578,000 as a present value? So we're going to do a goal seek to say, well, how much, what would your payments have to be, assuming you start with nothing, to still get to 2.5 million? That's where goal seek is going to come in. And this will be the last thing. On present value, you click on it, and you go to data, under your what if, and we're going to do a goal seek. And I want to set this present value to be 0 because I really don't have any money to start off with. And the way I'm going to change, I'm still going to get there, is I'm going to change my payment amount. So this number will have to be a larger payment in order to still get there, since I don't have a $500,000 to start with. And I hit OK, and as you can see here, present value is 0, and it proves out. But the fact is, you're going to have to be making $156,000 payments every year to get there. So hopefully you see that, and goal seeks are very effective. The key thing is you're changing your seeking cell has to be a formula, and these others, changing cells, have to be hard-coded numbers, not formulas. I'm going to cancel that to get back to my 2.5 million, get back to my million here, to bring everything back to how you saw it in the original opening shots of this video. And I think we're done, and hopefully this is a good spreadsheet for you, and we'll be testing you on it. So good luck.